Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Byer from GAI Insights, and welcome to our daily GenAI executive briefing, where we discuss and rate the top news items. Our team of AI analysts rate each article as essential, important, or optional (EIO) for executives and leaders at companies. Today's briefing is sponsored by GAI Insights. Ankash, kick us off, please.
Thanks, Paul. So the first news update that we have today is from Alibaba. So Alibaba has launched multiple LLMs for Southeast Asia, and these LLMs have been trained on multiple South Asian languages, including Thai, Burmese, Vietnamese, and Indonesian, and others.
I can make the case for either optional or important. I'm sort of in between, and the reason is because it's about Asia. So for any company that has significant Asian business or desires to be in Asia, this is probably essential because of the power it gives you to conduct commerce in multiple languages across Asia. If you're not in Asia, it's interesting. These are open source models. The amount of language translation going on seems pretty good. But unless you're interested in using the language translation, not so much.
And my bet will be that there will be other models to incorporate these translations on the fly. So I was also between optional and important, and ended up saying probably optional.
Do we think that this is a move away from a single large language model, foundation model that satisfies all the needs in the world to ones where they continue to improve on language and regionality?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like important. Great. Next.
Okay, the next one is from OpenAI. So OpenAI, they have published a new research paper around super alignment, in which they pro they are proposing that less powerful large language models will be supervising more powerful ones, and this might be a small step towards figuring out how humans will supervise superhuman machines.
So Julio, Adam, Amanda, do you have opinions on this?
I was gonna say I feel like this is a plug for their artificial general intelligence that we keep hearing about with them, and I just don't think we're there yet. So I'm more on team optional for this.
I am too. Julio?
I agree with that. Although I was going to say it's important, I think it's something to think about. Even the problem is an interesting one with the superintelligence part of it, but I think it's also an interesting one for like the level of intelligence we're at now, because it points out the problem of just like a regular human of average or above average intelligence trying to having to be expert or having to judge the quality or train another model which may be really smart in a particular area, and how difficult that is. So I think this research will be important, not just at the super intelligence level, but at whatever intelligence level we have today or in the near future.
Other comments?
Yeah,
I think they're just
go ahead.
announcing a research direction. So it is they're recognizing a problem, but it is a research direction with some initial results. So I just think it's optional for now until we know more.
Okay.
Adam?
I probably personally think it's important. There's also another press release that just came out from OpenAI yesterday that's related to this and super alignment, and they discussed the term agentic AI systems. And I think it's important that people get used to hearing it, because that's what this is relevant to, is having small large language models that can control these very powerful ones and basically farm out tasks and create these networks of agents. But generally speaking, I think this information and this news is optional, because it's just still too early. It's still too much on the theoretical end of things for our target audience.
Yep.
But Adam, Julio, I agree with optional, but also seems like this growing trend where it's not just one large language models. It's one that as a router to other ones. It's smaller ones judging. So I think the trend, it feels like over time, executive needs understanding here is we're going to have a village of AI solving a potential business problem?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that this particular article talks more about like controlling them, not so much routing, which I think is slightly different. And I'm going to push again for, I mean, I will live with optional, but for important, because I think this is a general problem where people say, well, why can't we just control this thing or have something to tell us if the output is good or bad or whatever? And that just kind of leads into this problem of like, if you were able to judge the quality, then you might have already known the answer. And so if you knew the answer before, then you don't need the system, kind of a thing, and how difficult that problem is. But I can live with optional.
All right, sounds like optional. Great for now. Next.
Yep. I'll make one opinion here that I don't usually make too strong an opinion, but I don't think this is going to work. This is because you remember these are compressed representations, and compression of compression doesn't usually make things better. Just my 2 cents. We'll see how it comes out.
But it's good marketing if you're in a war for.
I think this is a marketing paper.
Yes, yeah.
I agree.
All right, next one, please.
Okay, the next one is from Pearson. So Pearson is expanding the availability of its GenAI beta model to millions of students across math, science, and business titles.
Luda, I think this is important because it's an excellent case study in education, which is an area that, in the WINS framework, we call in the crucible. What do you think?
As a case study, yes. As an advancement for our audience, executives, probably no. But if we position it as a case study, agree. Because it's a massive undertaking. Pearson has lots and lots of content.
They are a major player. Yep.
Major player, major level of content. And so to put AI and train it on all that content is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think societally this is important, maybe even essential, but for our audience, optional.
Right.
Other opinions?
So, Tim, it sounds like important.
I think the vote is optional, other than me.
Yeah, it's also in beta. I'm just going to throw that out there as well. So it's almost like we're just reading about it, but I don't know that it's full on, rolled out.
And I think this is saying they're moving beyond beta. Like now it's going to be full on.
Yep.
No,
it's a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Paul, what I think we're saying, it's optional for our audience, but as a case study of an application touching a lot of people, it is very important.
Right. So I don't know, Paul, we haven't sort of come up with a way to do this. If people are looking for case studies, this is really important. If it's just normal AI stuff for executives, not so important.
I'm actually wondering if we need to start. We have a rating and rationale and summary. If we actually need to add a case study in our summary here, but let's keep it for optional for now and note the case study.
Okay.
Okay. The next one is from Microsoft. So Microsoft has expanded its Azure AI Studio to provide access to Llama 2 model and also GPT-4 Turbo with Vision.
Yep. So Julio, Amanda, I think this is fairly important, but I don't know how important. But I drastically expand seems a little over the top since they added one model. But they have clearly now said, we're going to do more. As we've said for a long time, we're going to do more than OpenAI.
Yeah, I agree. It's important for that reason. I wonder if these types of announcements will just end up being demoted to optional at some point, just because everybody's going to add more and more models to their system. That's kind of a
and they're doing it. I think the reason I gave it an important in my mind is they're creating model as a service. So it's one of the issues with open source models is the amount of infrastructure plumbing work that you have to do. And they're taking 90% of that plus away. Just sort of pick a model and it immediately sort of spins up. You still have to use an API. It's not a chatbot, but it simplifies a lot of the exercise.
Yeah. For me, it's important for that reason, Tim.
Yeah, I would say there are other people that host models too. I don't know. I guess I didn't pick up on that, so I don't know what a model as a service adds to the hosted models, but there are other services that host models too. It's important though because it's Microsoft too. So
Right.
you know
Right. I agree. There are other places you can do this, but Microsoft doing it, Amazon doing it, they're now moving up a level and getting these open source models more accessible to organizations.
But
Yes.
for our AI leader, can we talk about the trend? It seems like we continue to see a plethora of new models coming out with capabilities, small and large. We continue to see that different models fit different use cases. We continue to see that the big three cloud providers are saying any model you want, private, closed, open, small, large. Are we going to see the same thing for these 10,000 ISVs that are integrating with? If I have SAP and Salesforce, do I want model interoperability with those vendors, or can they just go with one ChatGPT and that will solve all the use cases for large language models?
It's an interesting question, and I don't think we know the answer yet.
I'm just tying it back to the earlier one. SAP, so they're in Germany and they're in Asia. So do I want SAP to use the Asian Alibaba large language model for the Asian?
I think in weigh in here others, I think the major vendors like SAP and Salesforce are going to build their own models. They may base them on an open source model or something else, but they're not going to use commercial models. They're going to build their own and try and get you to just use SAP or just use Salesforce.
Yeah. Case in point, what we just saw Pearson do in 200 countries, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
They're going to embed these.
Yeah, they'll want to do that for like accuracy kind of performance, but also for costs. And then since these are a little bit more vertical applications, they probably also want to control like the quality and how they're used and stuff. So it's not like a general platform where the user has a reason to choose one model over the other. They just want this feature or this functionality. And so I think the vendor in this case will want to make sure that they can provide that functionality well. So they'll limit the models. I would expect they would limit the models that they support.
Great. So it sounds like important. Great. Next.
Okay, the next one is from Salesforce. So Salesforce have added vector databases support to the Einstein Copilot.
Anybody against optional for this? I mean, everybody has it. This is like one of those, everybody has a vector database at this point.
What took you so long? Next.
Okay. So next is from Intel. So Intel has unveiled a new AI chip to compete with NVIDIA and AMD. The chip is called Gaudi 3.
I think this is important. It's a quick read, and I think the reason I'm going to say it's important, and again, interested in opinions, Luda and others, this is the only other major fabricator of chips. Every other, people don't realize NVIDIA doesn't make chips. All their chip manufacturing goes through Taiwan Semiconductor. So this is really one of the only other major manufacturer at scale of chips. I don't think this chip really competes yet, but they're on the path, and that's going to be important to have a second major fabricator.
Yeah. So Tim, I do think this chip does compete or theoretically competes. I don't know what it costs us. I don't know what the dollar to performance thing is. And I don't actually know, does Intel actually make their stuff? I know that they were offloading some of that work, so I don't know.
They offload some of it, but they certainly manufacture a lot of chips. It's true. Okay. I don't know if they manufacture this particular chip, but I think
no, because I was gonna, and this is like a 5 nanometer chip, so I don't know who does what at what scale. Because I was going to bring that up. The first thing I thought was like, wow, this is great, but people are announcing chips, but they all have to go through TSMC. So it's such a critical choke point.
In 2019, they acquired a company called Habana Labs, so they actually are manufacturing their own chips.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
right. Very important.
Right. So these compete with the H100, but I think NVIDIA's already at the H200 level that they're talking about. So we'll see how it goes, but it's clear that the war has been engaged by another fabricator, which to me was why it was important.
And so for important, what's the rationale, Tim, for the executive then? That's important because it might help.
To be aware of this, keep an eye on it, because this could be an important second supplier to avoid a supply chain choke point, which we're in right now. We can't get enough GPUs right now.
Yeah, the limiting factor, it doesn't almost matter how much money you want to spend and throw at the problem because you just can't get access to the chips. So this is another huge release valve for that pressure on the market.
Yeah, I agree that this is important for that reason, but the importance also how quickly those new chips arrive on the market. So the trend here is commoditization, even though we are in the lack of supply at the moment. But it's the speed by which they introduce these things is impressive, and so it probably will continue. And as a result, we'll have a lot of chips.
So is this is a trend line as an executive 2 to 3 years from now, because there's more chip supply and because there's no more models that can run on smaller, lower powered chip, that this constraint challenge we have now will go away?
That's what I say.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Never seen a shortage not followed by a glut.
Yeah, actually, you read my mind, Tim. I was going to go, what's happening in 3 years? Please take my GPU.
And
I will continue to use my GPU.
It might happen sooner because they're so fast.
It's a good time to bank a little bit of your profits on NVIDIA.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, that wraps up the day, December 15th. Thank you, everyone, and continue to send the great feedback, and we appreciate people online commenting.